All right, hello everyone. I know it's been so long, have not had one of these for in a while. But I really wanted to come back into it, and this is a conversation that me and my guest has already had, but we are going to redo it just because of how everything's been going on. And I just wanted to give space for everyone to kind of process what they've been feeling, just because everything has just been so crazy. So I hope that everyone is doing well and everyone is starting to kind of get back into some sort of normal routine. And so I have my wonderful guest here today. And before I introduce her, we are going to be talking about breaking down double standards, sexual explorations, and celibacy. This is a super interesting topic. And I'm really excited to be talking about this with my guest. And so why don't I just allow my guest to introduce who she is? Whether you go by Mai Yer or Eileen, however you want, I will let you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, City, for inviting me to be part of this conversation. And a little bit about myself. I grew up in Eastside St. Paul, birthplace in California, but I grew up in Minnesota. So yeah, I went to charter school, went to public school, and now I work at a private school. And I'm really I love getting into creative projects. I love like designing, graphic designing, and or video editing, things like that. So yeah, along the way I've bumped into City, and yeah, she invited me, and here we are.
Yeah. I mean,
But you, oh yeah,
uh,
yes.
oh
Go
no,
ahead.
I was just curious because I know that you take a lot of, portraits and photos online. Would you consider yourself a model, or how would you consider yourself?
So I wouldn't really say I'm a model. More, I would say more of a blogger, vlogger style.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's more of just lifestyle content. I love creating content,
Okay.
so you guys can definitely find me on Instagram. It's Mai Yer Xiong, and yeah, it's more like lifestyle blogging.
Okay. Awesome. No, thanks for saying all of those. I love it. And so I wanted to. Oh yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry, and you and sorry, and this is something new. You guys can call me Max.
Oh,
So
really? Have you heard that one
yes.
yet? Mex? Okay, Mex. Cool.
Mhm.
Without further ado, I do want to start asking you some wonderful questions, because one of the things that really stood out to me that you talked about was you being celibate, or you going on a celibacy journey. And so I wanted to ask,
Yeah.
what led you to celibacy in the first place?
Ew. It's a hefty question. it's it's been a really, I feel like it's been a really long journey. But in a kind of a nutshell, to sum it up in a nutshell, I feel like I made a lot of mistakes. And so I wanted to obey God and kind of just kind of make up for the mistakes that I made in my past. And so that's why I personally chose to follow celibacy and wait until marriage. I with my mistakes, I felt really shamed, um, and almost regretful for making those mistakes, and so I get really hard on myself about it. But I think that making the decision, I guess, to be celibate has really been kind of like I'm making it up for myself. Um, and yeah, and if you're a believer, or if you're Christian, um, in celibacy, when you're waiting to have sex after marriage, there's a lot of gifts that you receive along the way. Yeah,
Mhm.
so.
And so I'm so curious, like, was there just like a moment in your life when you decided to be celibate? Did something major happen, or was it just a sum of all the little events that you've experienced with the mistakes that you've made? Or was there like one major experience that you're just like, man, I just got to do this, or this is not going right for me, or I shouldn't be doing this?
Yes, it was a major event that happened. There was this guy I really liked, and knowing me, I usually, my tendency is I will jump on it really quickly and kind of rush things. So I slept with him, and I it was really messy because he was taking a break from his girlfriend broke up with him, and I don't know if we just both wanted somebody, because a guy I was dating also had dumped me. So and this guy, I considered him like a friend, and we've known each other for like 7 years, right? And he always had pursued me, but I just always said no, so we just never got together. But we ended up hooking up like 2 times, and I thought that it was finally my chance to be like, okay, well, now we can finally date, right? Because it's been like 7 years in the making or whatever. And that's what I was thinking. But he ended up going back to his ex, and he was still chasing her. So that left me feeling really sad. So I was just kind of, evaluating like what happened and why I got to where I was. And I noticed a pattern that I tend to always do that with the guys that I like, with all of my crushes. And it's so easy for me to just kind of throw my body at them and kind of lure them in, right? That way. But it doesn't necessarily mean that I can keep them. So, and keeping them around for the wrong reason. So I had to kind of just, dismantle that and be like, no, Mai Yer, like, let's not do this anymore. Like, I'm sick and tired of this, because you get left really hurt and really painful. It's really painful. So that was like the last straw for me, of like just feeling so hurt because of the same situation. So I was just like, fuck, like I need to do something different. And I was already beginning to learn more about God at that time, and I just kind of heard of people walking a path of purity, and I found that really attractive. So I wanted to do that too. Yeah. And I wanted to do that for myself.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, I love the, I guess you can say, epiphany, the epiphany you had, because I mean, when you said, it's so easy to just throw my body at the person that I like, I mean, that's such a strong message, because I just feel like there is a lot of girls nowadays, young girls, that it's really easy. I mean, even for me, I used to do that too when I was younger, because there is something in society that's telling us that that's what we should do. I mean, why would we do it if we weren't told to do that? And so I don't know. I just feel like, how do you feel about how that whole idea of how it's so easy for anyone, a guy or a girl, to just use your body, throw your body at someone and get that instant gratification of temporary love? I guess, just how do you feel about all that?
Honestly, I think it is a big issue, because I personally don't like seeing people in pain, right? I don't like seeing people I love in pain, especially. And I think a lot of us feel like that. So yeah, I think it is a big issue. I think that society, a lot of movies, they tend to, it's really complex, because there's some movies where they, I just recently watched like an erotica movie, right? But the movie was I really enjoyed it because it was so cinematic, and I really enjoyed that and the plot of the movie. It's like art. It's like you're enjoying art. But then there's other movies, like I watched a different movie called After, and that was more like a trendy teenager movie, where the girl goes out to college, and then she gets in a fight with her mom, and then she falls in love with this bad boy, but the bad boy ends up like changing her and things like that. It's just a little bit more typical, and you could, the vibe is just, it's like they just wanted to make money, mm-hmm. right? Okay, with the same story over and over again. So it's so important that you just have to be really careful about what you're watching and what you believe by watching. Yeah, and so I'm sure a lot of us grew up watching seeing like sex scenes on movies, or like lots of kissing, making out, or like our parents would tell us to cover our eyes if there's like a love scene. And then it'll make you curious, but then at the same time, like, you kind of know what's going on, and sometimes you peek, right? So it's just like movies. Like, if the movie didn't exist in the first place, then our parents wouldn't have to be telling us to cover our eyes in the first place.
I think what I started to realize when I was getting older, is just that I think it's really about how you mature. I think if you're exposed to a lot of that sexual content when you're younger, it's going to shape your mind in a way where you believe that the world is supposed to be this way, or you're supposed to act a certain way, you're supposed to pursue a guy a certain way because that's how you see it, because you're watching it on movies. And then when you're not that way, then you feel like you're not like right, or you're not woman enough, or you're not sexy enough. But I think that, right, when you get older and you do watch certain movies that are more what you say neurotica, there's different ones, and I think you can handle it differently and you can see it differently when you're older. But like just young teens, like when you watch those things, your mind just gets like, oh, that's how it's supposed to be, or oh, that's how, like unconsciously you're already internalizing that you're supposed to be a certain way. When I grew up, it just, I felt like you had to be this very sexy girl, with big boobs and big butts, and just you had to be this perfect person, and you had to be very sexy. I think that's why a lot of girls, they get wrapped up in this. You have to have a boyfriend when you're 14, 15, you have to have sex, you have to do this and do that, and they don't really learn what a real relationship is, and they don't really learn how to really love themselves first before they go into a relationship, because of what society is putting out for them to see. And I think that's they put it out because you make money, because that's what people want to watch, that's what people want to see. Because if you do like a very perfect couple, or a very perfect, like a person who is how we're supposed to behave like, then no one's gonna want to watch that. I don't know, that's just what I feel. But I think that it's just you as an individual have to be more aware that, okay, this is what's being put out, but I don't really need to follow what they're trying to say, because they're just trying to make money. So it's not, it's up to the media to also change, but it's also up to you to be aware, right? Because you can't stop everything from showing you different types of things and messages, but it's ultimately your choice to be more informed. So I want to steer back to the celibacy journey that you're having. What is one of the biggest struggle in celibacy? And I don't remember you saying, but how long have you been celibate for?
I have been celibate for about I guess a year.
Mm-hmm.
But there have been but that's when I decided to go celibate. There have been years where I think the longest I've gone without being sexually active was about 2 years, and I just wasn't dating anybody. So, and I wasn't interested in doing that sexual act anymore. So, yep. So officially about a year.
Okay. And then the biggest struggle you would say in being celibate?
I would say the biggest struggle is I think it's horniness.
It's human nature, sex is a human nature.
Yeah. So I would say that's like the hardest thing, is just getting over that. It comes and it goes in different waves for different people. So for me personally, I just, find ways to deal with it. I watch a lot of like sermons that talk about it, to find that support in the community. I also, I read books like The Weight by Megan Good and Devin Franklin. So good.
My gosh!
I haven't finished it yet, but
oh my gosh.
Good. Yeah,
I watched their interview with Oprah, and they were talking about their book, and he's like a pastor or something like that, and he's been celibate for 10 years. He was celibate for 10 years.
Yeah.
And she was celibate for, I think, almost a year, and then she met her man. I'm like,
and I feel like I relate so much to Megan Good, because I used to be that party girl. I used to, sleep around a little bit, and God saved me, and then I kind of turned my ways around and chose to be celibate. So it feels like a gift to be able to find things like this when you're on the path of celibacy. So And they talk about, horniness and just, feelings of loneliness and things like that, emotionally, physically, wanting just to have a warm body next to you. I sleep in an attic. I feel like I live alone because it's like it's an attic up here. So yeah, it's like I feel isolated when I'm just in my room alone. So it's like, so it's, you get the gist of it.
And when you say that the biggest struggle is, those natural feelings that you have that come out when you want to have a warm body next to, or you want to have sex, right? You said that, what are some things that you do to deal with it? You say you read, you watch sermons, but what if someone isn't Christian? What do you think they would do? Or is it because or is it that your faith is what keeps you very grounded?
Yes, so I would say for anyone who is celibate but non-Christian, whatever helped you to make that decision, like that should be able to help you stay grounded in your decision. Another thing that works, like when you're struggling with, wanting someone physically there with you and things like that, working out helps a lot. Okay, working out helps a lot. You get sweaty at the gym. You get to it's like a stress reliever at the gym. Your heart rate goes up at the gym. So stay active, and it kind of helps you to keep your mind off of things. So I would say like working out definitely helps a lot, or meditation helps too.
I just want to vibe off of what you were saying about working out and meditating. I think that people don't realize how powerful those things are, because look, hey, when was it? Okay, so like a few years ago, I was also doing like a 1-year celibacy kind of thing too. And what I realized about doing that, and I had the same struggles, and what I realized when I was doing that is that you have to find activities that kind of emulate the same feelings of having sex, right? Like the same, like, I don't know, the same hormones or the euphoria, right? That is going through your brain and your body. I feel like working out definitely it makes you feel a similar way, where you just have this great rush of energy and euphoria. And I think when you do it, I've felt it feel the same. And sometimes when you
like
do certain activities,
when you're finished. When you're finished at the gym, you have like a great workout. You just feel like, oh my god, I just feel
it just feels so good, right? But then you don't think about that until like you are consciously thinking like, that's kind of how you would feel after you have sex or something. And you don't have to always have sex to have that really good feeling. That's why sometimes people get so into working out, because once they do it, it just feels like this natural rush of euphoria. And the meditating too, once you sit for a long time, and then you get this rush of like euphoria going into your mind, and it's like floating, and
or after
it's the same feelings, and it doesn't, you can capture those same euphoric feelings in your body, and you don't have to have sex. You don't have to throw your body at someone just because you're feeling horny or you're feeling lonely. That you can find different ways that you can have a relationship with yourself. You don't have to just throw yourself at someone just because your flesh wants to be close to something. I think a lot of times it's just calling you to come back to you and find out what's going on with you, and why you feel like you have this great strong need to have sex with someone when you should be focusing on yourself, right? And working out, meditating is a way to focus on yourself but still give you those same feelings. I'm not saying don't ever have sex with anyone else, because I still think that it's a very beautiful and special feeling to have sex with other people. But I think that sometimes it's just so overrated, where people think that, oh, I have to have sex, I need to have sex, I'm horny, I'm gonna go have sex. That I don't know. I think it's okay, but I think you have to just be mindful of like why you're doing it. But just saying you can get those same feelings from having sex from doing other activities that are honestly non-sexual, and they still make you feel the same way. But
100%. You're right on the dot.
And so I also want to ask, what do you feel is the benefits of celibacy? Or I think you kind of talked about it a little bit already, but maybe you can dive deeper into it.
Yeah, I would say we did touch a little bit on it. I think that the biggest takeaway though is, I said that it was kind of like a gift to myself, right? Um, I think along the way you definitely get to experience long-term gratification, rather than nowadays we're quite impatient, and if we want something we could just like get it in a snap. So really practicing waiting for something and being patient for something really helps to build character, and for for especially for those who like want to become better versions of themselves. I think it's so good. It's really helpful. So that's what I'm kind of going through, is just kind of being able learning how to wait for what I want. And yeah, and then when you do receive it, like it feels really gratifying and fulfilling. So other than that, you also get to learn how to slow down a little bit. And for believers, I truly believe that God kind of allows you to dive even deeper into your creativity and into your career. So I think that that's really beautiful. It goes back to what you were just talking about, City, about focusing on yourself. And I think it's so beautiful because I actually heard that in a sermon. So you're literally speaking to me right now. And it's exactly what I learned. So it's like, you really have to focus on yourself, because I'm also in a waiting season to get married. So I'm learning how to wait, and I'm learning to focus on myself rather than on the other side, I'm feeling depressed that I don't have a spouse, that I don't have a boyfriend, and that like the guy I want doesn't want me. So on the other side of it is just like, to heal my depression, I kind of have to just shift my focus back on me.
Yeah.
And things just turn out so much better. Life is better when you're just focusing on yourself and really just minding your own business too. And
Right.
yeah. Besides that, I think it's just the awareness, which you also touched base on, gaining more awareness, and possibly being able to dismantle certain belief systems in our childhood trauma or our growing up, and just taking that time to heal ourselves. And again, it goes back to just focusing on yourself and allowing yourself to grow.
Right. And one thing you said earlier that really interested me is that you said that when you are celibate and you're focusing on yourself, that you can gain a greater creativity, right? Is that what you said? Yeah. And so what I've heard in the past is that, having sex creates creativity as well too, that when you're having sex, it makes you feel more creative. Things that I've read or listened to in the past is like creating, and that's also meaning sex, because when you have sex, you are, supposedly creating life. Yeah. So that being creative, being sexual, having desires is something that makes you
energy.
Yeah, that makes you creative as well. So
yeah.
What do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, sex and creativity actually comes from the same place.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, so like sometimes I'll go through, this is really personal, but it's real. So sometimes I go through phases of like masturbation, right? So I find that I found myself in places where I'm masturbating a little bit more constantly, and I'm less creative, and I'm feeling a little bit more lazy and uninspired. But then there's like, I've read the book Think and Grow Rich, which talks about this topic, about sexual energy and creativity, and how if you starve your sexual desire, you're able to have more creative energy, and you can use that energy within your body and kind of exert that into whatever you want. So like, for example, I can exert my energy into my career choices. I can exert that energy and like, put it into like photography, or like into my YouTube, or like whatever you want to build. So
interesting. What book is this? Because that sounds actually very interesting.
It's called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. It's a very great book. It has a
Okay.
lot of fundamentals for people who want to become successful. So
Mhm.
a lot of successful CEOs and millionaires, they recommend this book a lot. So yeah, check it out. It's really good.
Wow. Yeah, that is so interesting, because when you say instead of putting your sexual energy into other people who may not necessarily matter that much, maybe good for the flesh for the moment, you can use that, harness that sexual energy that you have and put it into something that you are passionate about, whether it's
Yes.
work, whether it's this song that you want to make, photography. Oh my gosh, that is actually a really cool concept. I like that. That makes so much sense. And
And
so
everything is energy, so it's just like
everything
you can,
is. Oh my
yeah, and it's just so it's so interesting when you learn how to control your energy and you can focus on what you want to, where you want that your
Yes.
energy to go,
Oh my
and the
God.
direction you want to go.
Yes. Just want to cry. Like, people, please
Yeah.
understand.
Yes.
Because, right, when you give yourself to someone who maybe is very hot and maybe you have a good time for that moment, and I don't judge people who does that, because I think that's your choice. That's okay. But I think once you do it over a long period of time, like if you do it constantly and a lot, it does take such a toll on you, your, not even your body, but like your spirit, your spiritual energy. I think that because you're exerting so much of this sexual energy to
Well, it is a
people.
sexual exchange when you're having
Right.
sex.
Right. It's a lot of energy to exert.
And so when, as a girl, when the guy's inside you, his energy is actually latching onto you, on your soul.
Oh, it's the soul. It's a soul thing.
Yeah, because it's so intimate. You guys, your private parts are, together and constantly, right? So when you're doing the act, so just think about it. It's like, it's so intimate, and it just kind of comes to a point where you're like, ew, like, why did I let him, do that to me? Or like, why did I let this guy handle me like that? It's just kind of weird. So so it's just, I don't know, you just come to a point where it's like, fuck that shit, like I rather do me and like, don't touch me, like, you don't need to like talk to me and things like that. You kind of just learn to have this space for yourself, where it's just like it comes to just coming down to respecting yourself too. Respecting your own space and how you want to be handled. And I think it's super empowering to be able to come back from that situation of like sleeping around, or being sexually explorative, and coming back and learning that this is not how I want to be handled. And then you raise your standards, and you set those really high standards, and here it comes, once you set those standards, you're focusing on yourself. There comes these suitors from left to right, wanting to take you out on a date. They don't even want to have sex with you, but they want to take you on a date and get to know you. And you're just kind of like, you get to kind of choose, and you're kind of like, well, you can be picky now, because because you've experienced a lot. So it's kind of fun. And it's kind of fun, to be able to have like in charge of yourself, in charge of your life.
You remind me of something that I watched yesterday, like a show that I just fell in love with. It's so cliche. It's on Hulu. It's called Beauty and the Baker. So it's basically about, it's like Hispania. It's like American film, but like it's a Cuban family, and this guy is a baker, and he falls in love with this Hollywood superstar girl. And so things just start happening, and like he's just this really nice like guy from a Cuban family who they have a baking business, and he's just such a nice guy, and like she just falls in love with him. And I was watching the show, and I was like, oh my gosh, he is the guy that every girl would want. But I was thinking to myself, I'm like, dang, I probably wouldn't have been ready for a kind of guy like that. I probably would have played him when I was younger, because I don't know, when you're younger, you want like the I mean, I'm not saying everyone, but when you're not full yourself, and you are always feeling like you lack love and you're lacking something, you always want to find something that's so shiny and interesting and mysterious, because you just want to feel something. And I think that's why a lot of women or a lot of people in general, because I don't want to just say women, whether they're female identifying, LGBTQ, that you just want to find someone who like fills that lack that you have. And I think that's why we chase those bad people, because they're also hurting like us. But I think once you focus on yourself and you're more filled and you're more full, then you can actually fall in love with the right people as well. You can find that baker kind of guy who's just really nice, treats you with kindness, and he isn't that interesting. He's not super interesting, but he's just so kind. And that's something that I started to realize when I got older. I'm like, yeah, I was watching, I was like, yeah, that's the kind of guy that I would want. But I feel like I would have been really bored of him when I was younger. You know, so it's so interesting too.
You know, it's okay, because I don't know if I mentioned it or if it's obvious, but I was like that too. I went for the bad boy all the time, and
oh my god, I want to slap myself.
And you know what? There was this really good guy that always asked me out, but I turned him down every single time. And now I want him because he's a good guy, and he's a catch. He's a great catch. And you know, I don't think that nice has to be boring at all. Like this guy, you know, everyone has a wild side, right? So like when you find the right person, you guys can be wild together, and you can also be really good together. That's what I want. So I think everyone can have that. So that's like something great to shoot for. Just have fun, right? Basically. And so yeah, anyway, so that good guy that I had been turning down, he's like, he has the girlfriend. He's so caught up on her, and I'm just like, man, can you just be mine? Oh well. You know, we'll find someone else. But
it's okay. Yeah, I think that sometimes timing it's just with everything, you know. If it's right, it will align, you know. If it's right, then it'll align. But I just find that it's just so funny how sometimes we chase those really interesting, mysterious people, and
it's good that we're learning it now,
right?
And so grateful for City for having this platform. For those who are listening, hopefully you guys can learn from
yes, I agree. It's you know, maybe when you're younger, it's all about spontaneity, but when you're getting older, it's about sustainability, how you will love each other in the long term. And I think when I was younger, I've always thought about that, but I think it's just because, you know, I will speak for myself. Like when I was younger, I just felt like I lacked so much love, or I felt like I lacked so much love from the people around me that I wanted love from, and for myself, that I was just chasing something. I think you said something earlier, and it kind of leads me to the next question about double standards for women when it comes to sex. Some people say, you know, oh my gosh, why can't girls can be just like guys, to just have sex and be player. I mean, I'm not saying all guys are like this, but guys are portrayed better. They are more, it's more okay. It's more okay in society for them to be players than girls. And so, but if girls are players, then they're seen as hoes. But if guys are players, they're just hit players. Like, woo, go. So how do you feel about that? Do you think it's equal, or?
I think everything should be equal. I think that when it comes to especially sexuality, I think it needs to be equal, because everyone has sexual desires, and whether they explore it or not is totally up to them. And it's honestly, it's none of our business unless that's like our kid, right? So, or unless they like tell us about it and want advice or whatever. But at the end of the day, like we shouldn't even be judgmental in the first place about, you know, each other's sexual exploitations. But going to like double standards, if we're talking about double standards, I was definitely one of those people who wanted to challenge that double standard and be like, well, if boys can do it, I can do it too. And I don't care how people look at me, because, you know, it's kind of like it's kind of like making a stance like, well, if I'm a boy, I could be a boy, you know, and so what, you know? So and kind of challenge that. Yeah. And you know what I did? So I think that I don't know, I think as City, you might be in the same boat, but I think that after that stance and experiencing, going through the motion of experiencing things, and up until now, I think we've kind of gained a lot of awareness and are interested and curious in a different path or how to handle it. So I guess my hope would be that men can do the same and have that awareness and act upon it. And for the men who are like, are sleeping around and think that they are hot shit just because they can get anybody, I hope that they learn that that's not what life is about. Like, it doesn't make you cool, and it doesn't mean you're the man, because it doesn't mean anything. It just means that you're a hoe.
You're right.
And what else do you got? And are you even can you even be a father? Can you even be a man? Like, can you take care of a woman, like a whole woman? So it's just comes back down to that.
I know. I just feel like a lot of guys, they get away with, having sex and with multiple women, or whoever they like, men, who are, etc. Is that I think it's just I don't know what I'm trying. I did know what I was trying to get here, but I think it's just what they've been told, whether it's by other peers or by society. I feel like a lot of boys, they pressure other boys to have sex. If you don't have sex, then you are a wimp. You're not a man. I think it's also this toxic masculinity that happens within men too, which they have a struggle with. I feel like there is a lot of boys. I think they're boys, when they're pressured to have sex, is, they don't even want to have sex. Maybe they have feelings. I think everyone has feelings, sexual feelings, but I think that it's, sometimes a boy doesn't want to have sex, but they get pressured into wanting or needing to be this masculine guy who should have sex with a bunch of people, And I do have a friend who has gone through that. And now he's also walking a path of celibacy himself. And I'm so proud of him. And we do have conversations. But he's a really great person, because I don't know. I don't want to speak too much about it, because it's his story. But it's just, he was that guy who like would, just have sex with whoever. But
yeah, I understand. And I'm never like really judging anyone, because I did some of the worst things ever. So I'm probably the worst person ever.
No, you're not the worst person. No, you're not. You're not.
I made a lot of mistakes. But what is it? I have a friend too who, for him, he felt pressured to have sex when he actually grew up kind of Christian. He grew up Christian and, waiting until marriage. But I think there was a lot of pressure from peers, from like girls who had a different belief system, and would, say things like, oh, you're not a man, or like, you don't want to sleep with me, and things like that. And I just think that that's just like, it just, oh my
girls be toxic too.
Of course. And I think I think that really, it comes down to like parenting.
Yeah.
I don't know. And it's all hard stuff. Like, you can't be a perfect parent, but it just has to be so intentional, I feel like. And it's just a whole different topic, because it goes down, I want to go down the path of saying, like, if you're not ready to have a kid, don't have a kid.
Right.
And if you're not ready to like teach him, like, can you please not have a kid so you can teach him right, or teach her right, or I don't know, but who's to say that I'm right? So it's so complex, but it comes just back down to, I feel like it comes down to parenting. And now I'm just rambling, but one of my dreams was to like be a mom, so that I can teach my kids to be good role models and have these teachings, and so that way when they're around their friends, their peers, they're a positive influence on their friends, and perhaps can save their friends from painful experiences, and kind of just elevate in life a little easier. Yeah,
you're right. Parenting is hard. Parenting is so hard.
It is. You can't control everything.
But yeah, if you try, maybe even if your child doesn't get it right there and then when you're teaching it, but when they get older, and even though they've gone through mistakes, they will take it and they will roll with it. Yeah, they'll come back. As long as you keep instilling it, the good things, the good things.
Put in the effort. more effort, a lot of effort. Yeah.
I do want to touch on one little thing about what we talked about in the beginning about women being equal to men with sexual exploration. I feel like it should be an equal thing where women should have the equal rights to explore like men, and not be shamed for it. I think that women are also sexual beings. I think that women and men are different, but they do have different like sexual peaks at different times. What I've heard is that guys, they get they get a lot of sexual feelings, or their peak is what, in high school or college or something, and then girls, they get it when they're older. But I just feel like it sucks though, because no matter how much we want it to be equal, it's not necessarily equal, because for women we have to worry about pregnancy, right? Yeah. So it really sucks that we have to take so much more precautions when we are exploring our sexuality, because guys, they could just plant a seed and go, but girls, women who can have babies, it's just like you want to be sexually explored. If you want to be sexually explored, you have to take so much different precautions so you can prevent yourself from getting pregnant. And I think that that's one thing that's really hard. And the thing is, like, the guys are penetrating you. There's a difference between getting penetrated and penetrating. I think that there's like a power structure there. That's why I feel like that's why I know that there are girls who are explorative, but there's a lot of girls who aren't too. Because I think that when you allow someone to penetrate you, it's like you're giving up your power. But then when you are penetrating, you are taking power. So it's just like,
when you're on top of him.
Yeah. Or and even like them in you, it just feels like they have power over you because they're the ones that are inside you. Yeah. And I think that's one reason why I have had such a weird relationship with sex, is just that, we are sexual beings. I'm a sexual being, but I just do not, I don't know. It's just, I don't know. It's just, I don't, like, it's not fair. It's not fair that the guys, they get to penetrate and they get to take the power. But I think if you find the right partner who loves you and who sees you as someone valuable, then when you do engage in that, the sexual act, that even if they do penetrate you, you still feel like you have power too,
Yeah. No, I totally understand. And that's all what I'm about too, is the fact that you gotta harness your own power and really like bathe in it, Mm-hmm. And of course there's structures to be powerful in a healthy way.
Right.
Yes. And right. And so in this space, at least, we're talking about feeling empowered as a single and becoming a married woman, right? Or that's what I would assume. Because I don't know, because you should only be having sex with your spouse. I don't know, but anyways, no, I think that that's so powerful and unique. And sometimes it's just like, maybe sometimes you just have to accept the way it is. Women were made the way they were, and men were made the way they were, and it comes back down to, maybe it's really deep for some. And so I think that for women to really prevent that power, a man to take advantage of you, like, you really just
you have to have your power. You have to have self-love, and
you just have to have it's almost like you have to have so much power within you.
Yeah.
And be really cautious of men, and having them around you, and if you feel any vibe that's off, like, obviously, distance yourself from that person. And it can get messy, because I know it plays into trauma too, and rape, but I think that everyone definitely has the ability to have a huge power inside of themselves. And control the things that you can control, like a proximity, who you're around, if you're going to this party, that party, who you're going to that party with, right? For the younger ones who are partying, a lot of sexual stuff happens at parties too. a lot of sexual energy at parties. Just be selective with what's in your life. And sometimes it's lonely, you know, it's lonely, and it only lasts for a little bit though, and you'll eventually find like friends who are really good positive influences on you, and you'll learn. You basically learn, like, so like I'm in a space where I love my friends. My friends think the way I do. Our values align pretty much, and I keep a very close circle. Like, I don't have many friends. Like, I might know people and know their faces and stuff, but the people that I really express myself to and show a lot of affection to are not many people. So, and that's all I need, you know. And like, if I become rich and famous one day, like, so what? Who cares?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, like, I have the people I really care about, and before I leave this earth, like, I'm gonna make sure that they get taken care of.
Right.
And everything else will come second. So.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. I think that it is important to have close people in your life too. And when you talk about going to parties and stuff, you always have to go with people that you trust, especially as a woman. I think we wish to be, and we strive to be, in a world where, you know, woman doesn't have to go, or female identifying individuals don't have to go out worrying, you know, that they might get raped or assaulted. But the fact of the matter is that women and men are not seen as equal, you know, and women are most likely more likely to be assaulted wherever you go, you know. And it just really sucks that has to be. And we want to strive for a world where men do respect women, and women respect themselves as well, you know.
Yeah. And, you know, I think that there could be a lot of aggressiveness, or, I mean, not aggressiveness, I think assertiveness that can be felt and learned with, like, protection and boundaries.
Right.
So, like, yeah, I'll get really aggressive with someone if a guy, and just be like, if they're just like, hey, you want a drink? Like, I'll be a bitch if you want me to be. Like, I'll be like, no, I don't want one. And then they'll be like, why are you so stuck up? I'm like, fuck you, bye. You know, like, I don't fucking know you. Like, don't talk to me. Like, you don't seem like someone that I would really talk to, and I'm here with my friends, so, like, you don't need to talk to me. I'm not interested. So it's just like, having that attitude too can help, and just be like, well, I don't give a fuck. Like, I don't know who you are. It might get you in trouble sometimes. I don't know. But at the end of the day, like, if you're with someone, you know, you're with friends that are worth your time, and it's valuable, then I'm not gonna let some random ass weird, I don't know, creepy person just come and approach or whatever and mess it up. So I get really protective.
I think it depends. I think it depends on the person too. Like, the vibe, right? The vibe that you feel. Because I do understand it is really hard to be a man. If you identify yourself as a man, is that, you know, they are the ones that are usually the ones coming up to girls at you know, functions and stuff. And I think, you know, nowadays there are girls who do come up to guys too, or come up to whoever they like. But a lot of times we do, like, ultimately default guys have to approach girls, so it is hard. But I think it's just kind of like the vibe that you feel from the guy, you know. And if you don't, and it's always your choice to not want to drink and everything like that.
Definitely. And we're definitely talking about, like, the bar scene or the party scene too. And you know, for guys who are watching, like, you can definitely approach girls from, like, social media, and you can still approach them too at, like, the mall, or, like, at a farmer's market, or somewhere that's not the bar, because I just feel like bars and parties have so much, a lot of shit goes down there.
Yeah, it's not really a place to find real love.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I also think that a lot of what we're talking about too applies to a lot of the younger folks, and with sexual exploitation. It's totally different when you're an adult.
Right? It is. Once you know.
Different. Yeah, it's very different when you're an adult. Like, if you're 30 years old and you're sleeping around, well, you know, that's on you. But if you're 14 and you're sleeping around, like, you know, you're gonna get some scolding.
Yeah.
And you're gonna be like, you know, why are you doing that, right? And why aren't you focused on school? So it's really about a time period too. And
I do want to jump off of that, because these last few notes that I have is that, the question is sexual exploration okay, right? And I think you kind of hit the mark there, where I think once you hit a certain age and you feel like you're more sure of yourself, and you have established a sense of self and who you are, do what you want to do, have sex with whoever you want. I mean, some people might want to be celibate, some people might want to explore, but I think at the end of the day, it's, if you continue to explore, just make sure you don't lose yourself. Make sure that you still, have a sense of self, and that you value yourself, even if you're just, exchanging flesh and time, and maybe a good time with that person for a temporary moment. But as long as you know that you are going to be fine. But I think when you're younger, you are less sure of yourself. You haven't built your sense of identity yet. You are probably holding a lot of trauma, if you have trauma, and just a lot of like things that you might experience when you're younger that you haven't worked through. So you might be using sex to fill that void. You might be having sex with a lot of people because of certain reasons, but you will probably lose yourself when you're having sex that much when you're younger, because you don't really know yet who you are. And I think that's the big thing, is that I would say, if I were like the queen of the world or the president or something, I'd be like, y'all don't have sex until y'all like 18, 19, 20, 21, because your high school years, I don't even think, yes, you're gonna have sexual feelings, but you should not have sex, because you don't even know yourself, and you don't even have a sense of what sex is, or maybe it might feel good, but you don't understand the value of sex, because sex is very valuable. Even when you have sex with a stranger, it's still, you would have to still see it as a valuable thing. Sex is not just something you throw around, because if you start to throw it around, then you start to lose its meaning and its value. And it's point of creation, right?
Yes,
it's creating.
It is a very valuable act. You can, and we do, a lot of people, we do abuse that. We abuse it a lot. So unfortunately. Well, to add on to your point, just a little bit ago, for teenagers, right? Even scientifically, your body hasn't fully developed yet. So when you're sexually active, that kind of like it kind of gets in the way of like your body's development, your bodily development, and your hormones. So it really messes with your head, and that's when you start to be more prone to anxiety or depression, and you feel a lot of feelings. So keep that in mind, because they're for teenagers, their bodies are still developing. So when you have sex, it just changes everything inside of you.
Right. Right. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's so true. And
I had a friend tell me that, and when she said that, I was like, oh my gosh. Yeah.
Oh really? Yeah, I definitely think so too. I think when you're younger and you don't know a sense of yourself, when you have sex with someone, you become very attached to them, because like you said, it's like your freaking soul touching the other soul. It's a deep connection that it's like, if you don't have if you don't know yourself, you're gonna just continue giving pieces of you to that person. And I want to share, like, my first time having sex. I was 16, and I was so young, and I think about it now, and I feel so hurt. I think I'm still working through that. It's just that I wasn't forced or anything, but I think it was just a lot of peer pressure from society, from people around me who were already having sex, and especially being with an older person too. Like, that's something that's so scary that I want parents to think about, because I think in the Hmong community, parents want your daughter to be with older people, but I think it's very dangerous, because I think that for me, when I was 16, I really had no sense, and I tried to act like I knew what I was doing, but I felt like I was so scared. And I feel like having like that first encounter is still like really traumatizes me, because I don't think I was ready, and I don't think I wanted to do it, but I think I just kind of feel like, oh, that's what everyone else is doing, so I'm just gonna do it too, but I just feel like I got scarred from that, because I just don't think I was ready. And I don't think, my mom, she's always taught me to always wait until marriage, and I just felt like I wasn't valuing myself, because I just kind of like allowed it to happen. but I think that there was a lot of other factors too, where I was really young. I didn't understand. I didn't have role models there to tell me that, what are my options when I'm in a relationship? Like, do I have to have sex, or can I not have sex? But I didn't know. I just felt like, oh, if that's what the person wants, I guess I shall do that, and I didn't understand. I didn't know how to put myself first. I always learned to put someone else first. And so I think that's why I've always given myself up to like the people that I dated or the people that I liked, because I just thought like, oh, I'm supposed to make them like me, but I never learned to put myself first, which really hurts me, because I just feel like it's something that I still work through, because I just felt like I didn't know myself, and I'm still angry at myself, at just allowing that to just happen so easily, when I felt like, I wanted to save it for someone special. But that's my perception, and other people has had different experiences with their first.
Well, we're definitely here to break generational curses too.
Okay, yeah. So okay, what does that mean? Generational curses.
Okay, so how I got to that was the fact that you probably didn't learn that you had those choices because no one taught you that you had choices. Yeah. So maybe your parents didn't know that they had choices either, which means that their parents didn't know that they had choices. So breaking generational curses, meaning that what are you going to teach your kids? Right. Are you going to let them know that they also have options? Most likely you are, because that's what you're doing right now.
Teaching my younger sibling and cousins.
There you go. Yeah. And so that way they get past that lesson quicker.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So breaking generational curses.
Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah. I love that. Thank you. That's a really intergenerational trauma too.
It's deep.
It's deep, right? You as a young person not feeling your own trauma, but like your parents, your grandparents, your ancestors' trauma.
Yeah.
I think our Hmong women has suffered so much, and I think that's why this generation we're trying to bring ourselves out of that suffering. I think we're doing a good job.
Yes, I think that Hmong women have definitely for sure progressed. I mean, they're probably the reason why we are where we are today.
Exactly.
Shoot, man, I've met some very powerful Hmong women, and one of them, would talk about how her parents would not pay for her college education, but her parents saved money for her brother's college education. And that's just so sad. I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I didn't have to go through that. Like, my parents were willing to help me pay for my tuition, but she had to fight that. So that's just crazy.
Right. So I just want to, I want to honor like all the sacrifices of our Hmong women. It got us here today.
Yeah. And I think, and this kind of correlates into like the Black community, because I know that they have their own trauma, right? So like that's where it comes down to, and I don't want to I don't know if we don't have to dive too much into it, but it's kind of just like, well, Hmong people, right, have their own traumas that we're dealing with ancestrally, our own generational curses to break. And I believe too that different communities also have that struggle. It's not to say that Hmong people are the only people who struggle, right? That we struggled the most, and like we're hurt the most. It's not a fucking battle about like there's no comparison, and everyone hurts, everyone bleeds. Everyone has some type of trauma that they're working through. A lot of people do. And so with the Black community, I know that they're hurting, and so with everything that's just been happening, I totally understand it when they say that they've been really fed up with things happening. And I think with George Floyd, it just triggered everything for them too. So I applaud them that they are protesting, and they're trying to make a difference with their community. And yeah, I think that's a different topic, and a whole different conversation to have about how to handle things like that, and how to be a part of it, with just being part of justice, and being part of helping them to heal. And I think that for communities that are outside of the Black community that are stepping in to help them, definitely have that awareness that, hey, I need to help my Black community, my Black brothers and sisters. And I think that's so unique, and it's very kind. It's a very kind thing to do too.
So right on. Yep, right on. And so I think the last question that I want to leave us off with is, I mean, what do you think?
Wait, so sexual exploitation is okay?
Sexual exploration,
Exploration.
Right? Okay, not exploitation, girl.
I said exploitation. That sounds like exploitation.
Yeah,
Ooh.
I was like, what the? Yes, sexual exploration is okay once you have once you're older and have a better sense of awareness.
Depends on age. Yep.
Yes.
And as long as it's under consent.
Yes.
And think long and hard before you consent it, because it's your body.
Yes.
Your precious body.
Yes. Yes, your precious body. I totally agree.
You are somebody's child. You're somebody's sister, someone's brother, and someone's auntie.
You're not just a rag.
Yeah, you're someone's uncle and someone's grandpa.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yes, I totally agree with that. And so, what do you think? How can we shift? Maybe this isn't the question. Oh yeah, okay. I guess I'm focusing it on women specifically, or female identifying. Like, how can we shift the stigma about women if they, aren't the typical, like, if they aren't virgin, basically, how we have views of women who are sexually explorative and they're viewed a certain way. And how do we shift that narrative? I think especially in our community, that they're bad, or that they're someone that you shouldn't be with, because even guys, they talk. Guys talk like, oh, that girl, she sleep around a lot. Like, let's stay away from her, unless you want to get some and you're like, oh yeah, let's go after that girl because we heard that she sleep around, right? But I've had conversation with guys too who I feel like they not that innocent themselves, and they're over here like, oh yeah, that girl, she a hoe, and I'm like, you is not even that innocent. You're a double standard right now, because I would just get confused. Like, guys think they can do. I mean, I'm not saying all guys, because there are wonderful guys out there. I'm not generalizing all guys, but there's just some guys who just like think they can, sleep around. But then when a girl sleeps around, they're like, oh, she can't. She a hoe, right? It's just how do we shift these narratives? Like, what do you think? I mean, it's a really hard question.
It's hard because it comes down to the individual who's saying it, to the people who are doing it. It doesn't mean that it's everybody's thinking that way, right? It's it's a lot of people that are probably thinking that way, so it makes it seem like there's a majority of people thinking like that. So honestly, I think you just have to, it's kind of like Black Lives Matter, you kind of just have a conversation with them and kind of explain it to them that, you're acting like you're having double standards right now. Like, I see you sleeping around so much. Like, don't even say that about a girl. Like, dude, you're a hoe too. Like, if you had a guy friend that's doing that and saying shit like that, give it back to them. Because and if you stand for double standards and you notice that they're like acting like a double standard and they're being unfair and they're being judgy, then judge them right back. Shit. Right. And maybe that will knock some sense into them, or however you think that will kind of knock some sense into them. Yeah. And to be like, well, don't be so judgy about like this girl and that girl. Sometimes they're just saying it to have fun and be like stupid. But sometimes too, it's just like, well, it's not okay to say things like that. So like, I wouldn't really want to be friends with people who say that stuff. Right. So you're saying just like have more conversations around that, like what we're having right now, right? Just having more conversations around it, making it okay to talk about sex in our community, and trying to educate our young ones about what sex really means and how valuable sex is, and what relationship means and what real love means. Because I think it gets really twisted when you're younger, when you think what love is, and you're still very hormonal, emotional, right? That it's good to talk about sex so our young ones understand as they grow up, so they don't have to go through a lot of the mistakes that we've made, the trauma that we hold from, trying to find love, trying to be someone that we're not maybe necessarily, or trying to, just follow certain things that society is telling us to do or be, or our peer influence, right? There's this really good book called The Judgment Detox that talks about judgment It Dives into Judgment. It's by Gabrielle Bernstein, and yeah, she's so good. She's like a spiritual teacher, and what she's taught me about judgment is that when I am let's say, for example, I'm kind of like judging. She uses her own examples in the book. So like, for example, if we have any type of judgment against someone, it usually means that whatever we're judging them about is actually about us. We're judging our own self. And yeah, and it's like a mirror, right? So like, let's say my friend is too like obnoxious and I don't know, gosh, what can I use? My friend is too his style is too wild, right? His wardrobe he wears is too wild. I don't really like it. Like, I'm just like judging it every single time I see him. I'd be like, you're wearing cheetah print with that print? Well, that's probably just a judgment on myself. Like, either, dang, I feel insecure that I can't rock that, or I feel insecure like, oh my gosh, that's totally my style too. So it's just like judgment is just like, keep it to yourself sometimes.
Yeah.
And
or assess yourself while you're judging,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. And yeah. So
because I do want to make a last note. It's like, I feel like women judge women harsher than anything else. Like, I am more afraid to tell women sometimes about things than anyone else. I think it's really hard because I feel like women, they have such a strong judgment on other women, especially with this idea of sleeping around. You know, if you're around different people or different types of women, I just feel like there's just a lot of judgment there too, within woman to woman. So
yeah. And you know what I've learned, City, is like, I'm just not gonna hang out with people who are so judgy. Like, I'm not the first girl to go and gossip to.
Right.
I just, sometimes it's just like, you just pick and choose who you want to hang out with.
Right.
And whoever you choose to hang out with is your reality. So if we're hanging out with people who party all the time, and they're going to be talking about partying all the time and all the drama that goes down at the parties, and that's going to be like my reality, right? And those are my friends. But if I'm going to be hanging out with people who are like building businesses or like working on creative projects or advancing in their careers, that's like all that I hear about. And so it's just, what are you choosing to be in your life, and it just goes back to like, if I had a guy friend who was talking a lot of shit, like about, oh, she's a hoe, like, oh, we don't want to sleep with her, things like that, I'd be like, if he was a good friend and he said that, I'd be like, dude, like, what you said was so inappropriate, and like, I can't believe you just said that. I don't think we can really hang out that much anymore, and put that distance there. So like, you have the decision, you have the choice to move things in your life. Be selective with your friends, and who you hang out with. Yeah.
Right.
Anyways, yeah.
Good. I think you left it on a good note. Be around people who you want to be around, and
be around people who you want to be like.
Yeah. And what is it? Just, I guess, to close it off, just do what you do, whether it's sexually, just know yourself, right? When you're a little older. And so I think that those are good things to close off with. And so I just want to thank you for taking time out of your day to just have this really, really important talk about, sexual exploration, double standards, just how we view sex in general. So I'm really happy to have had this conversation with you. Is there anything, I think you said it in the beginning, but you can say it again. Is there anything else you'd like to say? Anything that you'd like to promote for yourself, or where people can find you again?
Well, I'm working on a couple things, but if you guys just follow me on Instagram at Mai Yer Xiong, I will usually share with you guys what I'm working on and things like that. So yeah, find me on Instagram and I'll see you there.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And I hope everyone has gotten something out of it. And I will see y'all again. Peace.